There's some important things we gotta talk about when it comes to the Bazaar. Now, the game has been out in closed beta for about 2 weeks, and there's already a lot of discourse about it. So the balancing of the game is a subject that is pretty heated right now, and I'll give you my take for it and kind of what's going on. And this happened while I was browsing the Reddit and I saw this post. I didn't click on it yet, but seems to be a big sentiment for people right now. And before I want to start off with this rant, I'll say the game, again, has been out for like 2 weeks in closed beta. So it's insane how many people are already having strong opinions about the game, even though you gotta pay 30 euros or dollars, or you can get a code only to have access for a month. Open beta still has to release, and I'm not even going to talk about the server issues. So the server issues are probably the thing brought up the most annoying thing that they're also actively working on. I don't know enough about the backend of servers, how they work, to give my opinion. Obviously, it is very annoying that they're constantly being taken down and like crashing, and they say it's like a bottleneck. They didn't expect the EU servers to be so overpopulated compared to the America servers, and this will probably get resolved over time, like I'm sure of it. But anyway, the fact that there is this much like critique already on the game in 2 weeks can be seen as a good and a bad thing. Let me explain why it can be seen as a really good thing. The fact that, again, this game right now you gotta pay for, it's only out for this amount of time, and so many people are addicted and hooked already, to the point where they feel like they gotta write posts like these and they gotta express their opinion on like what is frustrating, is good. It's healthy. It means that the game is very popular and people really enjoy playing it, enjoy it that much that they wanna help improve it and like get frustrated by things already. If people don't do this, if there is no discussion, if people do not want the game to get better, the game dies. If there is no critique, that means the game isn't good enough, or people don't care enough to leave a post. They'll just stop playing, right? A lot of people that don't enjoy a game enough, they stop playing. But all these people enjoy the game enough and are addicted enough that they are complaining. So complaining can be seen as a good thing, especially, again, this early in the stage of the Bazaar. The Discord server is giga active. Like, it has currently 16,000 people online, even more. During peak hours, the chat goes super fast, even with slow mode. And you will see a lot of people always complaining in here and asking stuff, and the community is insane this early. So that's why I think the Bazaar is in a really good and healthy spot, and why it has so much potential, because so many people care deeply about it already, and there's so many people being frustrated with the balancing of the game. So that's how you can see it as a good thing, all of this. The bad thing is obviously that if there's a lot of issues with the game, people in the long term, if they don't get resolved, will turn away from it. This closed beta I don't think is a good impression, because again, this only has 3 characters with 100 items each. There's still more being added. A lot of features that we're missing right now, like social features, the way that you can in-game check all the items. So there's a lot that they're working on. And once we have, I guess, the full release in January next year, we'll be able to have a more actual picture of what the game is like, this closed beta. So a lot of like complaints aren't really super valid yet because of that reason, because the game is not a finished project yet. But yeah, the fact that the game is so buggy and service crashing and all this shit, and people are still addicted to it, good thing. But they gotta work on some things, otherwise people will get frustrated. So if that open beta servers, for example, are not fixed, if EU servers still go down every time around peak hours, or if they also, their communication isn't great every time they work on servers, or not every time. They used to just work on servers, and then once the servers go down, they let us know, hey, servers are down. Well, we are in a run, or people are doing shit, and then you lose like a day in your run or something. The communication has to be better. They gotta at least like half an hour beforehand notify people in the Discord or on Twitter that servers will go down. Do not start a new run. That would at least like be a little bit nicer. Or even if they give like a time schedule of like, tomorrow we'll do this, then we'll do this. Currently it's very lackluster. I don't know how things work behind the scenes, what their system is, but that's the thing. Also, they don't have anyone working in Europe, so communication in the servers is all happening during NA times, which again, the biggest part of the player base apparently is Europe. So most people are located in Europe and they only work during NA times, which is fine, but at least have a community manager or have someone on payroll that is from a different time zone. So at least there's communication while everyone else is asleep. Because the majority of people, we're all left in the dark whether service crash and what is going on, because nobody is awake to inform us about anything or Yeah, I don't know. There's some weird decisions on that end. I don't want to comment too much on it, but it's just a bit weird to see how they're handling the communication between everything. I feel like I'm yapping a lot. I'm trailing off. I was talking about the balancing, right? But yeah, people are thinking this patch is really miserable, and they thought that last patch as well, and they thought that in the beginning. So right now there seems to be a loop happening where there's broken stuff like Skyscraper, which was just a one-shot build that was super easy to force on Pygmalion. That got nerfed, and then there was other broken stuff that popped up. That got nerfed. More broken stuff pops up. Right now it's just one-shot Vanessa. It is still Pygmalion doing absolutely dumb shit. And there is Armadillo now on Dooley. So Dooley has a build that is absolutely bonkers and easy to force. And the main issue with all of the builds and with every patch, and the reason why I think patches right now are not going to do anything, they might just rebalance stuff, right? Every week they might do some balance patch. Nothing's gonna change. I mean, the builds are gonna change, but there will still be one build that's easy to force that will be the strongest, and that will stay the same until open beta or until full release. The reason for that is just the simple amount of items that you have. Like, they can nerf shit and buff shit as much as they want to. There will always be a strongest thing, right? That is just how the game works. Never are things going to be in an exact same power level. That is almost impossible to achieve for any game, so there will be a meta. But the issue is that there's only 100 items per character right now. There's only 3 characters, and they will only slowly, after a while, release more and more. So because of that, no matter how they balance stuff, people will find the strongest thing, and it will be forceable because of the pool of items that there is right now. So we will always have a meta that is easier to force, that people will spam because it is the most consistent way to climb. Most of the high rank players just play the strongest character, just usually look for the strongest builds and pivot into them, and they know maybe like 2 or 3 really other strong builds that they could do if they don't hit the exact items. Like, a lot of the gameplay loop right now is very similar. It's the builds that you're constantly facing, and that is not going to change for the closed beta, I feel like, no matter how the balancing goes. That might be a hot take. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, this is how, like, my hypothesis, how I think about the situation because of the patches that I've seen right now, and because of patches I've seen in other games in the past, and how it plays out and how these issues are resolved. But because of this, the high ranks will always be achieved by people who just do the broken thing over and over, and there will always be a thing stronger than other things. Now, the power line could be brought down and things could be more in line and be more balanced, and that might make the game feel better. But like, for example, right now, burst, or for most of the game, burst has always been the strongest build. Like, killing someone fast has always been the strongest, and there's a few ways to counter it, but getting full freeze build is really hard, especially early on. You gotta live to like later days to get the expensive freeze items and get like really good skills. And another way is to get a lot of health, but only Pygmalion can like realistically get enough health at this point. And even then, Vanessas are disgusting right now. But if they would nerf, let's say they nerf all of the high burst, right? And they increase health pools or whatever. They find a way to make burst not the best thing. The issue is that scaling will then be the best thing, and then we'll have a Dooley that gets to 1,000,000 damage weapon after like a half a minute fight. So there will always be something else just becoming meta and being super strong. Then scaling becomes the best thing. And then if scaling gets nerfed, maybe it's tempo again. And this is an unsolvable problem right now. So for closed beta, we'll have to live through this. We'll have to wait until more characters and more items get added, or they change the system. But actually, let's just read this post real quick. I didn't even read it yet. I've just been complaining. I feel like there's no build variety past 5 days anymore. I feel like it has been for like most of the game. Except for after a patch when people are trying to figure out what the strongest builds are, then there's some variety, but usually people figure out pretty quickly, and the variety is kind of gone. Every single day past, then it's either Armadillo build or Pig doing a million things that are all as strong as other heroes' best builds. I will say you can still high roll a build and beat like anything. That's the beautiful thing about the Bazaar still, is that if you high roll some crazy item with crazy skills, like some synergies, you can actually beat all of the meta builds. You can beat high burst Vanessa, you can beat Armadillo. Like, it's possible. They still exist. It's just way harder and less consistent if you're trying to climb. And because you need gems and tickets to climb, you're incentivized to just do the safe thing instead of experiment and lose all of your resources, basically. Yeah, this patch is making me like the game less. This is things already stopped playing. This is the worrying part, right? So people complaining and already wanting to play less simply because right now in closed beta, these issues are gonna like arise a lot. I don't even care about the bugs that much anymore. I don't care about the server issues. That's all kind of whatever. I just hope that sooner than later they find a way to address the balancing. There's also some other stuff like the ghost that you're facing. People are a bit confused with how the matchups work, and like that sometimes you don't get matched with proper opponents. Balcony shadow removed, no announcements. If you didn't know balcony was shadow removed for 4+ days, you'd being bugged and not doing 2x but 10x? Why wasn't anything announced about it? That is true. Again, coming back to communication, I don't know why there is none, basically. Looks like they're terrified to give small updates like this and prefer to not acknowledge them. Yeah, there's things that I hope they handle differently, but wait, let's read this. And then after this post, I'll end the discussion, but that is what I think about the balancing, why it will be broken for a while and hopefully be fixed. But I think Bazaar does a lot of things right with the gameplay loop. I think compared to other games, it has a very fun way to play, to climb, to create really broken builds. I feel like every game on the Bazaar you can get something turbo broken, which feels nice. It feels less nice if you face it, but sometimes you're on the other end, and I don't even mind losing that hard. So what I've been liking, I've been playing a ton of Bazaar and I've been loving it. You managed to hit that addiction feeling, and I've had with other similar games in the past, like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, Auto Chess, Slay the Spire. And this is what a lot of people fell into. Again, this quickly. It's kind of crazy. I remember an interview with Warren in which our favorite noodles said they would just inject a new pack of cards in the game every X months, and I'm sure it'll bring even more diversity. I'm excited for this, but I think at launch they already gotta inject a lot of more items. I like the design philosophy. Yeah, so we don't want it to be able to force builds, but rather do what the game offers. Decision making has to be important. I like games in which forcing the best meta builds is possible, but less good than doing what you can find. I think Backpack does as well. In Backpack you can force builds, but right now, because of the variety and skills they can offer and items and ways to build stuff, and if you press random, you also get a bonus at the start of the game. Like, Backpack has a really cool solution to this, and I think you can more flexibly play games and like have skill expression compared to just forcing. Of course, there's a meta and there's like stronger items than others, but yeah, I hope that the Bazaar will also solve that. Adaptation, more important than meta. Compared to Hearthstone, we just copy paste decks and go to Legends without much effort. Yeah. What could be improved? Overall balance. As I said, I don't care a few months of broken items. No, they will be fixed. I'm more worried about a ton of items that are just not as good. So it's just about putting two things next to each other and saying, this is obviously better than this. Why is this in the game? I think that argument is like can fall flat, because if the item that is worse just costs less or is easier obtainable or is like smaller so you can fit it on the board, like there's a lot of reasons why a worse item would be better to have early or to get for free or to fit on your board than a stronger item. Late game is different, right? Like early game and late game items should be differentiated. So an early game item is just like a big damage number but doesn't scale or doesn't do anything, for example. It's just good to fill in a slot on your board, or like something that scales a little bit, like gives you weapons +1 attack whenever it attacks in, for example. Early is more valuable, late game is shit. And I think the same way, like you can compare it to regen. Like regen early is pretty strong, like you can actually get 10 regen in your early fights and you're super strong. Late game, the 10 regen is not going to matter because people have something that heals them for 1,000, right? So I think in that regard, it's fine to have weaker and stronger weapons as long as the weaker weapons have a benefit early over the stronger ones. Like they might be harder to find, they might just be silver or gold, so you can't even hit them in shops. So that way, I think balancing can make sense, and also the money that you spend for it, the enchantments, things like that. But it is true, balancing, I hope, will be maintained here. I know it's Reynard, I know he cares about this game and he wants it to be different from Hearthstone the way that it's approached, and he said even at some point he wants to do live balancing while the game is like without taking the game down. So while you're playing the game, balancing could be happening. But yeah, I said that more than 2 weeks ago in a similar post. I'm going to repeat it. I have an issue with the scaling in this game. You've addressed it a bit less patch, but endgame scaling is just too low for 99% of items you find to matter. I also don't really agree with this, because some builds like Vanessa, Tempo, like Burst doesn't even want to scale. So it depends. Some builds want to go faster, others want to scale. And items that don't scale, you could find different ways to scale the weapon through other items. This is all kind of just, I think, part of a gameplay loop. I think these points, I didn't expect it. I honestly expected different points here, but I think this is fine. The scaling in this game still feels so linear, and endgame is still the worst aspect of the game. I don't think I agree with that. I think the endgame is more fun than the early game. Early game is literally just you face a Vanessa with a 100 damage spear, you probably lose. Late game, there's so many different interactions that are part of it. So yeah, these were actually not the critique points that I expected. But again, with balancing, a lot of people have different opinions. This is my opinion. People might not agree with it. I didn't study this. I never did balancing for a game. I've just been playing games and making content all my life. So I've seen a lot of it, and I've tried like to understand a lot of it. And everyone who plays the game is gonna have their opinion on how to balance and what they think is good and what is bad. The team at the Bazaar will have their opinion on what is good and what is bad. But basically that's where the balancing is at. That is currently the big issues with the Bazaar, what I think causes the issues and how to solve them. Yeah, oh, this is also a really, I know I keep saying I want to end the video, I'm yapping a lot, but this is another really big thing, that comebacks are nearly impossible. I do agree, this game is very snowbally. If you're strong early, you can take all the strong PvP fights, you get more money, more XP, and with that you can get greedier, you can pick items that give you more money, more XP, you can get the big upgrades, and you just start snowballing and snowballing. If you're behind and you lose your fights, you're gonna have less money, less XP, you're gonna be weaker, it's gonna be harder, you just have less resources. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that if you're weaker, you just have way less resources than the guys who are snowballing and just get more and more resources. Also, if you lose early, I know it's only 1, 2, or 3 prestige and it's not much. If you can close out the game by day 11 or 12, that is a short time span, and by then you can still destroy builds that haven't had the time to scale yet. Some builds need like 15, 16 days to come online, right? Then they get like super, like those final days, they blow up a lot. The early fights actually matter a lot more than you think. They need some other comeback mechanics. I mean, the main comeback mechanic they have is when you drop low, you can get like diamond items, an enchantment, which is pretty good, or something else. That is the only comeback mechanic. But yeah, I do agree with this. Yeah, and the last stand mechanic is never consistent. Like the random enchantment is usually bad. Oh, it's 20 gold, 5 XP, true. Alright, before I keep yapping, this is what I wanted to talk about. This was on my mind and on a lot of other people's mind. Let me know what you think down below though. I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow for more, and I'll see you in the next video.